Welcome to Midlife Moves, where we're figuring out this whole midlife thing one day, one workout, and one what the hell just happened moment at a time. I'm Heather, and if you're navigating career shifts, fitness goals, parenting teenagers, or just wondering when the hell we became the grown-ups, you're in the right place. Let's talk about the real stuff, no filters, just honest conversations and a little bit of chaos. Let's get into it. Hi. This is Heather Francis, and welcome to another episode of Midlife Moves. First of all, I'm going to acknowledge that I'm so glad that I don't do this live because this is my fourth take of this because I keep just like rambling. So I'm not going to do that this time. This time, since I'm already doing it, I think I just need a nap. I think that's really what I need. Anyway, hi, welcome to another episode of Midlife Moves. Today, later in the episode, you're going to hear me talk to Lynn Mull. She is a former Wall Street executive turned intuitive coach. And you are going to hear us talk about what it really looks like to step out of the grind and into alignment, not by burning it all down, but by learning to listen differently. We're going to talk about fear, ego, energy, and how sometimes the hardest thing to do is to stop asking everyone else what you should do and start trusting yourself again. As always, I know that as I'm saying it, I always catch myself. I love talking to Lynn. I loved this conversation, and I love that you guys get to hear it. And I hope that you guys get something out of it because I did. And I fell in love with her. I think that she's absolutely wonderful. And she has an oracle card deck that she created that I've been pulling from. If you're on YouTube, you see me holding it up because it's legit on my desk. It's just on my desk. And I just grab it and pull from them. Anyway. All right. I digress. I was thinking about her situation and being in that high stress job and then her transitioning to where she is now and where she feels aligned. And sometimes that is a choice that you get to make. And sometimes that is a choice that is made for you for various reasons. In my case, it was a health thing. I had the stroke. I was living one life and then it literally burnt to the ground and I had to start over. But I could see myself a lot in Lynn and the things that she was saying. There was a time that I thought that being busy meant being valuable. And honestly, guys, I still have to struggle with not being in that mindset. But I was running from meeting to meeting, replying to emails while cooking dinner, while spending time with my family. I had my laptop open all the time. I was working between, 50 and 60 hours, sometimes more. I was traveling all the time. And the travel was great. But when you're traveling alone and when you're traveling for work, it's not that glamorous. I went to New Orleans and I saw the inside of the hotel and I saw the way to and from the airport, but I thought that all of that meant that I was doing it right. I thought that meant that I was the best worker. I was the best employee. I was wearing a million different hats and I was making myself indisposable. And let me tell you what happened when I had the stroke. I was replaced. I was replaced easily, as a matter of fact. And that, let that serve as a reminder that yes, your job is important. And obviously, our health insurance is tied to our job. Our whole being is tied to our job. But finding a space where you are happy and fulfilled is important. My days would start at 7:00 in the morning. I would drop, at that time, I just had the 3 girls. And then, I was pregnant with Mikey. When I delivered Mikey is when I had the stroke. So, through working, I had little kids the whole time. And I would have them out the door and be dropping them off at 7:00 in the morning. The second the daycare doors were unlocked, I was walking in them to drop kids off. So that would mean that I was getting up at 5. I was getting everybody else up. I had them, fed, dressed, homework completed, all of the things first thing in the morning. I would get out the door, get them dropped off. Then I would be at work by 7:15, 7:30. I was often the first person there. And then I'd stay until 4:30, 5:00 whenever I had to leave to pick the kids up. And then I would go home and work more. My weekends were spent working. Even when the Blackberries were created, you guys remember that? That's how old I am. We didn't always have email on our phone. We used to be able to step away. BlackBerries were created, I was like, this is great. I never have to miss another email. And let me tell you how that affected my life really, really negatively. There was a time that I had a conversation with my husband and he was like, this is not what I signed up for. And I really didn't think that he was going to be home when I got home. I thought that I really thought that he was going to leave. Like everybody, we've gone through ups and downs. And that was a down, but he was right. I was constantly working. I was constantly stressed about work. It was just all consuming. It was heavy. I wasn't sleeping. I was irritable. I was not a good mom because I was so irritable. I was so angry all the time. I was just so stressed out. I remember there was a morning that I woke up, and I will never, for the rest of my life, I won't forget this feeling. I woke up and I just laid there and thought, there has to be more to life than this. There has to be more to life than this. I was miserable. I was miserable in every aspect of my life. And then I had a stroke. So I had to, my life burnt down and I had to rebuild it. The truth is, I know I'm not the only one who's been in this space. Most women in midlife are juggling families, careers, and this invisible expectation that we have to do it all and we have to do it beautifully and we have to be perfect. We tell ourselves that it's temporary if we can just get through this day, if we can just get through this week, if we can just get to Christmas, if we can just get past the holidays, it's going to calm down after that. But it never does. It doesn't calm down. It just continues because that's life. And it's, not at the risk of sounding like a Debbie Downer, it's relentless. Life is relentless sometimes. Somewhere along the line, we have to start asking, what do I have to do next to feel like myself? Because when you have that voice that starts yelling, like there has to be more to life than this, that's when you know that something is really, really off and you are in the wrong space. Now, I'm not saying you need to leave your job. I'm not saying you have to do anything drastic, but you absolutely should, for your own benefit, step back and think about if there's any steps that you can take that will put you back on a path where you can find joy, fulfillment, whatever it is you're looking for, something that you feel aligned with. That is one of the times to start asking those questions. It wasn't until after I had the stroke and after I really started to recover from the stroke, because when I got sick, people in my life were lucky if they were getting valid responses from me for a little while, right? I was looking at people just drooling on myself for a little while there. Once I started to become more myself again, I started to see what that load was. And I say all the time, I don't know how I did that. I don't know how I lived that life. And I don't know how I did that to myself. I don't know how I made all of that work. And after reflection, I didn't make it work. It looked like I was making it work. But as I mentioned, I was miserable and I wasn't doing anything good. My kids were probably miserable because I was miserable. My husband was absolutely unhappy. Not everybody has that experience. There's a lot of people that like their jobs and maybe they don't feel like that crushing anxiety and that crushing pressure. Maybe you just don't feel aligned with it. And there's changes that you want to make. Maybe you're really happy in it. And if that's the case, God bless you. You are really, really lucky. If you are doing something that you absolutely love and you're listening to this and you're like, God, that really sucks. God bless you because that was just not my experience. Lynn had her own version of that wake-up call. She was flying coast to coast. She was working in high-pressure finance until her body and her spirit said, that's enough. That's when she started following the breadcrumbs, first to coaching and then to intuitive healing. If you've been feeling stuck, flat, or disconnected, this conversation might feel like an exhale. Here's my conversation with Lynn Mull. Let's get into it. Hey, listeners, it's Heather here with a quick message before we get into the rest of the episode. I have been blown away by the level of support from you guys. I love seeing how much the topics resonate with all of you and hearing how the episodes make you feel seen. I genuinely appreciate the outpouring of support from everyone. If you've been enjoying the show, there are a few ways you can continue to support the podcast and the team behind it. If you aren't already, follow us on Instagram at the Midlife Moves Podcast. For more behind-the-scenes info on the show and our guests, check out our website, midlifemoves.co. Reviews go a long way. I'd really appreciate a rating and a review on the podcast platform of your choice. And finally, check out the merch store. It's a fantastic way to rep the podcast and help support the team that makes these episodes possible. We've got some great designs for t-shirts and totes available there. Thank you all again so much, and enjoy the rest of the episode.
Motherhood is complex. One minute you're soaking up the sweetest, most heart-melting moments with your kids, and the next you're hiding in the pantry with a fistful of chocolate, wondering if you're the only one making it all up as you go. Spoiler, we all are. I'm Scotty, a mom of 3, life coach and intuitive who finally said, screw it. I'm done trying to do motherhood the quote right way, and I started trusting my mom tuition instead. Because the right way is whatever works for you. Momplex is where we cut through the noise, ditch the guilt, and figure out how to actually enjoy being a mom without losing ourselves in the process. I'm not here to tell you how to parent. I'm here to help you stop overthinking, stop comparing, and stop feeling like you're failing because you're actually doing so much better than you think. This is a real, unfiltered, explicit as hell mom talk that you will not get in the carpool line. So let's do this. Real combos, lots of laughs, and a whole lot of truth bombs. Welcome to Momplex. P.S. This podcast is explicit. So unless you want your kids casually dropping F-bombs at preschool, grab your earbuds, mama.
Hi, I'm Marianne Weisenthal, host of the LifeSpeak podcast, a show where we dive into real conversations about mental health, resilience, and navigating life's everyday challenges. Each episode, I sit down with leading experts in health, work, and wellness to unpack big topics like burnout, parenting, leadership, anxiety, and personal growth. My guests share their own stories of struggle and resilience, and together we keep it honest, relatable, and practical. Whether you're looking for fresh perspectives or just a moment to feel seen and supported, you'll find it on the LifeSpeak podcast.
I'm Stuart Murray, host of Humans on Rights, the podcast where we dig into the stories that shape our understanding of human rights, one conversation at a time. I sit down with guests who are making a difference, all sharing powerful insights on what it really means to stand up for human dignity, equity, and justice. We cover the issues that matter with honesty, curiosity, and heart. You can listen to Humans on Rights on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and online at soundoff.network and humanrightshub.ca.
I am here today with Lynn Mull. Lynn is a former Wall Street exec turned holistic career coach and energy healer. Thank you for joining me today, Lynn.
So excited. We got on the calendar, 2 working moms. We got it done.
We got it done. And we even had to shift it a little bit, but we made it work because that's what we do.
That's what we do. We're flexible.
That is what we do. I'm going to start at the beginning with you. And I'm just going to ask you to walk us through your journey a little bit.
Sure. So I started my career after college. I went into GE training program and it felt very buttoned up. And then I got recruited away to go to Bank of America, where all of my, back in the day, Six Sigma was the hot thing. So I took that, leveraged it, went to Bank of America, did some amazing things with merger integration. So I was like a SWAT team. I would fly all over. I lived out of suitcases, rental cars. Like I had a suitcase packed at all times, which led to amazing experiences. It was often, I felt like it was the MBA case studies that I was living. And then I was living in San Francisco, moved back to New York City. And when I moved back to New York City to work, it was job related. And my family is on the East Coast where I am now in the Lehigh Valley of Pennsylvania. The market had just crashed in 2007. And what I thought my job was going to be changed. And it was a hard time for a lot of people, but in finance in particular, it was crazy. So that time I thought, you know what, I think I might want to go back to California when my mom got diagnosed with colon cancer. And so I decided to stay on the East Coast and help, and then met my husband, had my 2 kids. And about 10 years ago now, I really started to notice, I picked my head up from the sand from that grind, and I noticed that there was a lot of unhealthy, toxic behaviors around me, how I was constantly being treated. Words were literally getting picked apart in meetings and group brainstorming meetings. Why did you use the word worried? I was like, well, I am worried. We're about to spend $5 million and we don't have a plan. So that's an inappropriate word. I was told that it's not an appropriate word to use. And so things like that became bigger and bigger. And that's one small example. But after having two small children, working on airplanes, commuting to parts of New Jersey, I was on the road on airplanes, trains, planes, and automobiles, trying to juggle my husband's career, my career. My mom was still in and out of surgeries and treatment. I got to the point where I said, well, what do I want to do? Because the toxicity continued, Heather. It just kept getting worse and worse and worse. Org changes for the sake of org changes. And what I ended up doing was starting to follow breadcrumbs. So my first breadcrumb was hiring a career coach and then taking coaching training, which fast forward to today, I have many other certifications, including Reiki Master, and I'm here in the wellness space and able to hopefully help other people who are struggling with wanting a change. It doesn't always have to mean leaving, but they might want to change or a reset.
During that transition, that was a significant transition.
Right.
Like it was like a total shift. What were some of your biggest fears, and what was some of the biggest, like the resistance that you faced during that time, and how did you move through that? Because there's a lot of women that are like, I can't do this. I can't do this anymore. But they're like the fears. Like, how did you move through that?
Well, it does feel strange. It's like we put on this suit or a cape and we walk through our lives as the moms. We play these roles. And I just thought to myself, what's going to make me happy and learn? I'm all about the growth mindset. So the first step was the coaching training, which was a chunk of change that I had to talk to my husband about. We have a rule. If it's over a certain amount, we have to have a big discussion. Mm-hmm. And I thought to myself, worst case scenario, if I do nothing else with this, in air quotes, I can use it at work. And it seemed like a win-win. So I do think that sometimes those fears, it's like, well, is there something I can do today that has a little bit of an overlap that makes sense for this stage of life? And I didn't leap, and I knew I couldn't leave. Financially, we were not in a place that I could leave and take a huge risk at that very moment. But I guess in my strategic thinking thought, okay, if I stair step my way, there's something else out there. Mm-hmm. And I was in that intern mind, that beginner's mindset, where I was like, I don't exactly have an answer. So I lived in that space for a while that was like, I'm not exactly sure where this is headed, but it's helping me mentally get through the weeks because it was something else to focus on. But I think a big fear of leaving what you know is, what was this all for? Can I make the same amount of money? Do I need to make the same amount of money? What will people think of me if I say Reiki Master instead of, insert title, director, executive? I run a huge team. And that's a lot of the ego work I've had to do, but it does come up.
Yeah. The weight that we, as not just as women, just as a society, put on a title is unhealthy. It's so I could see that being huge.
And having lived on the West and the East, I do think that sometimes there are different places in the world or in groups that are more into talking about titles or what do you do? And there are other groups in our world, and West Coast is more like, what did you do this weekend? When I lived there, it was like, what mountain did you hike? What did you ski? What triathlon did you sign up for? How was your volleyball tournament? So it was less about that. And I think I kept that with me. And then I always thought, and I don't know about you, but when I was a little kid, I remember sitting around the Thanksgiving table. And I remember thinking that my uncle was the CEO of our power company. And I realized at some point in my college years, I just thought everyone ran stuff. I had no concept as a little kid. And then I woke up and I was like, he's a middle manager. oh, wow, I was putting so much into his quote unquote career. And I think sometimes we all put too much into our own titles. Like at the end of the day, what difference does it make? And I used to say at work, which probably got me into some trouble, I'm like, you can call me whatever you want, but this is how I want to spend my time. I want to be building leaders. I want to be creating big things. So I always had that knowledge that the titles were sort of silly, but I also think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to stay in those places when are they really satisfying us? And maybe it's just a tweak. Like we don't have to give everything away. We don't have to throw everything out with, the baby out with the bathwater. We can stair step it in. I do think the internet is always like, I leapt. I just took off. I just abandoned everything. And really, I use all of my experience to do all the things.
Yeah.
I've not let go of any of that knowledge that I gained.
No, because there's absolutely a space to do something that fulfills you and, like still do your job. Like I still have this is a hobby for me. This is, I have a day job. I work with my husband who's off to the side and he's probably thinking, do you have a day job right now?
Slacker. No.
Slacker. As it's 1:00 on a Friday and I'm doing this. That's okay.
That's okay. But I did this on nights and weekends. I coached women on nights and weekends. I attended events and workshops. But I was really, really particular about what I went to. So there's a PA conference for women that I would go to, and I would hone in on what speakers do I want to go introduce myself to for my side business at the time.
Yeah.
So I made it a point to create opportunities for myself, and then that fear starts to change. It shifts from the loudest voice to even Oprah said when they told her she was getting her own TV station, she was like, not me, I'm not good enough. Like that imposter stuff is for everyone.
It's for everyone. And that's loud sometimes. So now you're in intuitive healing. Can you explain to the listeners what that means?
I talk about titles. It's so hard to describe what I do. But even when I was in banking, it's hard to describe what I did. I had like a COO, chief of staff type role. So at cocktail parties, I'm never like, I'm a doctor, I'm a nurse. Like I've always had these jobs that are so multifaceted like you. Mm-hmm. We pick up all these things. Intuitive healing. So for me, I'm clairaudient. I hear messages and I can also see images. So that's the intuitive part. I am not a medium, although I hear and see guides. I do not talk to dead people. I have a friend who does that if anyone wants her information, but I have been trained in Reiki, which is a Japanese healing art, a lot of similarities between acupuncture, but not with a needle. So I work through chakra systems. I can do it virtually, which I can't explain, but it works. I do it also in person. And I do it only with people's permission. So I'm tapping into the chakra space, or some people call it aura, and understanding that our energy moves all around us. It moves 6 feet in all directions. And so I'm tapping into that in a session. Like right now, I'm not tapping into Heather's energy, but it's about the ability to understand that sometimes things get stuck, and I work with people to release that stuckness.
So what are some of the things? So women come to you for all kinds of things, and you work solely with women.
I have some male clients. I have a lot of male followers, but I do have male clients.
Yeah.
Which I think is interesting. That's a whole other.
I love that.
Episode. Yes. Why do women come for me? For Reiki in particular. So there's 2 ways that I work with people. There's the energy healing is I feel stuck. And sometimes they say I feel crazy, or the other term people use with me a lot is I can't hear myself think. Mm-hmm. There's too much rattling around, and often highly functioning women who are exhausted beyond repair, maybe in some sort of perimenopause situation or in a huge pivot. I get a lot of women who are like, something's got to shift here. And they don't know what. So they'll come to me and we'll work through where we think the energy needs to change. We work in the session, and then I always give homework or sort of follow-ups. And then the other way people come to me is to work through, well, what am I going to do to pay the bills? So how am I either going to stay in my job and make it work for me and my family? What do I need to say, do, feel? Or I want to change, or I want to explore, or I've just been laid off. It's these big pivotal moments. And I always bring energy healing into all my work.
So I think that a lot of the people listening can probably identify with a lot of those spaces, because there are times that like you just feel, yeah, I mean, stuck is the only word. I'm trying to, like, I can even think of the feeling as we're talking, and I'm trying to think of a better word for it. Like, I just can't, because it's just like there's nothing moving.
And it's more than a depression, because I think people have felt seasonal depression, or they felt a little low after maybe the loss of a loved one, and you feel that state of overwhelming emotion. And it's more than emotion a lot. It's about I think of it a lot like those old school bank teller tubes when you would sit in your car and you run the tube. I don't know if they still have those, but the idea of this, when the money can go and that check deposit can go, that tube gets sucked up. And that's how we want our energy to feel. But when you have to keep pressing the button, like send my deposit to that teller in the window, and the tube is stuck and there's no movement, that's when there's often something that's awry. I believe the cause is either we're holding too much in, we're not speaking our truth. We don't have to speak it meanly. Maybe we've been living in the shoulds too long, or maybe we just have put everyone's needs first. As moms, we're working, we're putting our clients first, I don't know how many times I said to my kids, before, during, and after COVID, just one more email as I'm stirring a pot of pasta. Just one more thing. Oh, just one more thing. I have to send this email. I have to look at the ping. And it gets to the point where you're not giving yourself space as a woman or man to rest and digest that information, or have a minute to really wash your hands, wash your face, take 5 breaths. How many times are we holding our breath? And that all adds up into our bodies. The Chinese medicine crew call it qi. I call it qi. That's the ray of qi, the universal life force energy. Mm-hmm. And when I was at my sickest, I know you and I have talked about health stuff. I've had 2 surgeries, and I went to an acupuncturist for help because I support myself in my health journey. And I have a team of people that have helped. And he said, your qi is flat line. And so sometimes people feel that flat line and they're walking through their life. And I don't want people to feel that way. I do feel there's another way, without totally giving up, without totally resigning and throwing in the towel, so to speak. There is a way to move through life with purpose, high impact, but it does take some work and some shifting.
You do a lot of ego work.
A lot of ego work.
Like, I'm kind of at a loss for words with this question. What does that look like? Just like high level.
So what I want to get people to be able to articulate and to feel, it's not just saying it, but it's I am me. I am me. And I've had that hit me like a lightning bolt myself several times now through this work. So it's continuous. It's not, sometimes we fall back in patterns, but it's this shedding of attachment to the title. It's shedding, for me, it was working for a well-known banking brand. It could be you're attached into people, friends, relationships, even material cars that you feel attached to, and getting down to what is your essence. And there's often a lot of shadow work in there, some tears always. And then I call it the dip, but after the dip, there's always this coming out on the other side. And that when you get to that I am me place, when you really feel confidence again, boundaries come easier, communicating comes easier, love comes easier, money comes easier. It's this, I call it abundance. It doesn't have to be financial abundance. It's this like whoosh. It's what the internet calls manifesting. It's like you open up these different channels that before, when you're letting your little e run your big ego, you don't have a say.
So you mentioned shadow work. I'm unclear of what that is. What is shadow work?
Sometimes it's called the dark night of the soul. It's when you feel so overwhelmed and yet you're still living in other people's expectations, or maybe your own. So perhaps like I have taken a lot of work. So for an example, sometimes we have to name or make caricatures of the things holding us back, the shadows holding us back. So for me, I have this little part of me that I call her the principal. So imagine the glasses. She's got the ruler in her hand. She's not got a messy bun. She's got a tight freaking bun. And she's like, Lynn, you have to do this. It's the part of me that tells me I have to organize everything. It's the part of me that has to pick up the pieces. It's the part of me that has to deliver not one meal to a friend in need, but 12. And I don't need to follow all the rules and be the non-risk taker. I'm perhaps moving out and understanding why that quote unquote principal part of me is so loud. And so working with that, and it comes, Heather, in many different ways for many different people, but it's the parts of us that hold us back essentially for one reason or another. And every reason's different. It could be family, it could be DNA, it could be, for me, trauma at work. The fear, right? It all gets wrapped up and then it takes on a life of its own, but we don't have to do that. I think that this time is critical. And I know you and I talked about this and feel this way, that also then our hormones in midlife start to say, I give up, and they literally don't work as well. And that's why a lot of women come to me in midlife or in this big pivot, because they're like, I can't make sense of any of this. And I'm not a functional doctor, but I know enough resources to help refer out. Because when your hormones start to shift, the anger can come, or the true upset, or the tears like we're 13 again and we're not. So it's managing that and also trying to make sense of all of that. Am I crazy, or is it my hormones? Do I hate my job, or is it my hormones? And it is a trifecta.
Well, yeah, right. Because I know that's where we were too. It was very much like an identity crisis almost. Like
Right.
kind of just questioning, like, is this the reality? Like, is this really how I feel? Or are my hormones just really playing a fun game right now?
And trying to figure that out. And sometimes the answer is still the same answer. Like, I needed to leave work. I needed to leave the job I was in to move into another space. But it could be regulating. I have enough clients who regulate their hormones outside of our work, and they end up staying and deciding they want to run a different group, or they want to stay in the same industry and change roles, or they need a board seat because they want more impact, or they just want to say, I need to take a step back and create more boundaries. Whatever that is, making sense of that is a really important part of this journey that I recommend people do in parallel.
I sent out an intake form to all of our guests, and Lynn filled it out. And so I asked, what's something that people might be surprised to learn about you? And you said, I tell my clients to stop asking other people for advice for a while until I give you the go ahead to keep going. I don't know why that struck me, but I looked at that and then I looked at it again and I was like, we need to talk about that.
I mean, a lot of people do not like that in the first 2 sessions. They're like, absolutely not. So I work in 3-month containers, and I have a system, and I have a clarity map, and it's between my work, the work that I've done with the clients, and I've created this little toolkit. But I say time out. So when you go on a walk with your friend, with your weighted vest or whatever, I'm off the weighted vest game, but if you go to your book club, if you are with a colleague having coffee, or you're with a client, time out, stop asking people what to do. And people say, well, what are you talking about? Like, I talk to my sister all the time, and I think, should I do this? Should I do that? Should I go left? Should I go right? And the reason I say stop is because the work is internal, and you ultimately, and my clients ultimately, know what they need to do or want to do. And when we go externally, whether it's the internet, or it's a social media influencer that we follow, or it's our girlfriend down the street that we walk with, they ultimately have no idea, and they are biased. And it's not their fault that they're biased, but they are promoting their own supplement, which you might need, but you probably don't right now. Or they're promoting, your neighbor decides she wants to start a candle company, and so she's trying to tell you to create a product, and you're like, I actually want to stay in my job. So these biases they really, really cloud our ability to make decisions. So what I want you to do, I want anyone to do, is get as clear as we can between maybe an A and a B, and then go to your advice crew, your board of directors, your personal board of directors, and say, I'm thinking about asking for a promotion at work, or I'm thinking about starting my own consulting business. And it's a lot healthier for people to respond to A or B. well, I can really see you staying at your job. You don't like to do, small business ownership. I can't see that for you. People can relate better to the more definitive yes or no, help me out.
Yeah. I mean, also asking people, because people have a view of you. And sometimes if you start to go outside of that, that makes some people uncomfortable. So if you're talking to somebody about like their board of directors, like my husband is always going to be on mine and my mom is always going to be on mine. And those are the two, and maybe one or two girlfriends, but like those are like the people that I know will have my back and would support me no matter what. What do you tell people to look for in their like ride or dies?
You need some ride or dies, and then you need some people who are removed. So maybe people that don't live in the same state. Like I have a friend in Texas. I call her all the time. She doesn't know the friend group. She doesn't know. She's not biased. She has no idea. I've met these people and probably never will. And she also worked with me in the past. So she has a sense of my work brand. And then I also think there's someone who will push you, who will find that friend who's the board of directors who will question what you're doing and lovingly push on you. I have a friend who, she's no BS, and she'll say, that sounds like a big investment to take that on. Or why don't you try this? Have you thought about? And she does it in such a thoughtful, brilliant way in a non-judgmental space. And when I go and talk to her, I say, hey, I'm looking for advice on this one thing. I box it. But just to take this one step further is that part that you talked about, having people outside your inner circle is so important so that they're like the second or third tier away from you. Because when I told my husband that I wanted to become a coach, or I told my parents, my dad said some crazy stuff, God bless him. And my husband's like, right now you hold the benefits and right now we need your salary. What are you possibly talking about? So their fear can embolden your own career. And so oftentimes those folks are the biggest resistors. They want you to stay in your little spot because, for my dad, he's like, you went to the 4-year college and then you went to Wall Street and holy cow, you made it. And you had the office in the corner. What are you going to do? You're going to give that up? And their context is just, I see you as. And I tell people the same thing. If you're looking to build a relationship or build a network or have a new job, go in clear. I'm looking to run a team of XYZ. Don't ask permission from the people you're networking with. Give them a head start. And so asking for that permission puts us not in the driver's seat of the next phase of our lives. They talk to me about it. They get to talk to me about it. They're allowed to dump it on me and we hold it in this little container. So it's not like they have to shelve all of their ideas. We create space for that.
Well, and it's so nice because it's having somebody like a coach who is not like intimately involved in your life just is kind of, it makes a big difference. You have some things coming out soon. You want to talk a little bit about your Oracle deck? You want to talk about all the things that you've got coming up?
So the 24 Oracle deck is my first true print. And this is a little booklet I'm holding up on screen for those watching or seeing us. 24 is very important to me. I was born on the 24th of the month, but there are 12 new moons and 12 full moons. And that means that the moon is constantly moving, but it's only visible to the human eye, assuming it's a clear night. Every 2.5 days, we can tell the difference. So think about all of those phases in between. So the Oracle deck is a way. There are no rules. I was in a very highly regulated industry. There are no rules. You can pull it every day. I have ways in the booklet to talk about how to do polls, or you can just DM me and I'll do one with you. It's a great way to just pause throughout your day. And the other reason I created this is because every time I get on my yoga mat, and someone said, what's your mantra? I was like, I don't know. My brain is thinking about the laundry and the bananas I need to buy. And is there something in the fridge for dinner? So this is a great way to say, here's my anchor. When I'm having that bad day, when the fear is raging, I'll carry the card and the prompt in my purse. And so when I'm in the car line or I'm waiting in a doctor's office or whatever I'm doing with the kids, it's like, okay, remember, trust yourself. You guys are hearing it first, actually, but I'm doing some abundance work. So after you get through the dips and you quiet the fear, you start to get all of these great things happening to you. Like you for the podcast, you're like, I'm doing it. Here it comes. It's growing. And then what do? How do we manage this abundance? Because our former self, that old self, hasn't maybe caught up to all of these opportunities. So how do you take this abundance? How do you move from fear of having, or, what happens if you come into more abundance of love, money, relationships, network? What do we do with them? So I'm creating in January. Follow me on Substack, which is my name, Lynn Mull on Substack. I'm going to be releasing an abundance course and talking about being wealthy and well.
Right, because we had talked about before, abundance isn't just necessarily financial. It can be any number of things.
So defining that for yourself in midlife versus maybe how your parents dealt with abundance, or maybe how your grandparents, and how you're maybe stuck, and then you can open those doors further. So it's being both wealthy and well, and wealthy can be in all those categories. Health would be a good place to start, right?
Health would be the best place to start. Yeah. Please give me health. And my last question is more of a personal question.
Ooh.
It is simply, what makes you feel confident?
It's a great question on a great week, because I finally feel good. I finally feel like myself again. And I believe that I'm getting choked up. I haven't felt well in a really long time. And when you don't feel well and you can't move your body and you can't really string anything together, like you can't execute on anything. And so for me, it is that mental, physical, and spiritual well-being has gotten me to this place of confidence. So I'm having a lot of fun this week again, and it's been a long time.
Well, that's awesome. That's like the best. That was the best answer you could have given.
I literally have been journaling, and I wrote to my friend, like, holy shit, I'm back. Like, I'm back. And that is what I want others to feel. And I'm a better coach because I went through all of this. I'm a better healer because I can understand where people are at. A better empath.
Yeah, because yes, I appreciate that a lot, actually.
I used to say, like, I was a terrible I got married when I was 35. So I was a terrible wedding guest up until that point. And then you go to the wedding and you realize how important RSVPs are, and you realize how important giving the gift, quote unquote, on time is. And then you have your own wedding. You're like, oh, I was a pretty bad guest. And now I was a good intuitive. I'm highly intuitive. I don't even know how. I have an idea of how it came to me, but I've tapped into this space and I can give to other people. But now I'm really connecting those dots since my own health took a dive in the last 18 months. But women out there, I have to say, like, you have to take care of yourselves, and it doesn't have to be all day, every day, but you've got to carve out time every week, whatever that looks like. Make the appointments. If something's wrong, ask for help, reach out. And if I don't know, or you don't know, I'm sure you and I can refer out to help everyone in this community, because it's so important. It's so important to look out for each other.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I agree with that. Thank you so much for talking to me today, Lynn. This was awesome. This was actually a lot of fun. And can you give everybody you mentioned your Substack. If they want to find you other ways, how else can they find you?
Sure. My website's easy, lynnmull.com. And my Instagram, where I'm pretty active, is @_Lynn Mull. And I just dropped 7 free visualizations on my Substack. So check it out if you're curious about Reiki infused meditations. I've got several up there, one about anger. So if anyone's blowing their gasket like I was 6 months ago, feel free. It's under 8 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you again. That's it for this episode. If you had fun, learned something, or just feel a little less alone in the chaos, make sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss what's next. And if you want to keep the conversation going, come find me on Instagram @HeatherMoves_, because midlife is way more fun when we do it together. Until next time, keep moving forward, or at least keep moving. See ya.